Okay, so it sounds like a massive stretch, doesn't it? Taking the deeply private, 2,000-year-old journals of a Roman emperor and, using them as a modern mental health toolkit. But what we're going to uncover in this explainer is how the philosophical insights of Marcus Aurelius actually line up perfectly with today's top therapeutic practices. We're bridging ancient Stoic wisdom with modern psychology to help you build a truly resilient mindset. We want to give you real, actionable tools for your everyday life. Let's dive in.
Look, we're constantly talking about feeling completely overwhelmed by the complexities of modern life, right? We talk about burnout, the deafening noise of social media, that relentless pressure to just always be productive. And it's incredibly easy to assume that, hey, because we invented smartphones and the 24/7 news cycle, we somehow invented anxiety along with them. But I have to ask, is our modern stress actually uniquely modern? Well, check this out. While we're stressing over social media likes and comparing ourselves to influencers today, you jump back 1,800 years, and Marcus Aurelius was in his journals writing about, quote, the vanity of all that great clamor and the fickleness and superficiality of all those who seem to applaud. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? He was dealing with the exact same feelings of inadequacy and public pressure. So sure, the technology has totally changed, but the human mind's fundamental struggle for clarity, that hasn't budged an inch.
To really understand Aurelius, and honestly, to get why his philosophy holds so much weight today, you have to know one devastating number: 13. That is the number of children Marcus Aurelius had with his wife Faustina.
Tragically, only 5 of those children actually reached adulthood. I mean, let that sink in for a second. This wasn't just some guy sitting comfortably in a shiny palace philosophizing about life. This was a father experiencing profound, crushing, repeated human grief. He desperately needed real coping mechanisms just to survive his reality and, frankly, just to wake up the next day. Stoicism wasn't just some fun academic exercise for him, it was quite literally his mental survival guide.
So before we start borrowing his methods, we kind of need to reframe how we view the battlefield here. As Toronto podcaster Sohila Hakimi points out, everyone has to manage their mental health in the exact same way we manage our physical health. Even if you don't have a diagnosable mental illness, we all face that daily friction, the emotional exhaustion, the stress. Bottom line, we all need a functional toolkit to manage our minds and protect our peace.
To make mapping these pretty heavy, ancient philosophical concepts onto our modern lives a lot easier, we're going to use 5 really memorable animal avatars. You can think of these as visual anchors for your emotional regulation. Because let's be honest, when you're super stressed out, your brain doesn't have the capacity to recall some complex academic text, but it can recall an image. These animals act like a psychological shortcut, letting you pull up the exact right mindset the very moment you need it.
First up, when the chaos hits, we channel the majestic stoic lion. The lion represents absolute, unwavering calm right in the eye of the storm. It stands completely still and unmoved when everything else around it is spinning and going crazy. Why? Because the lion knows that storms eventually pass, and only fools exhaust themselves trying to chase the wind.
Aurelius himself actually captured this lion-like energy perfectly. He wrote about being a promontory, like a massive rock cliff against which the waves constantly break. In modern therapy, we call this setting firm emotional boundaries. When everything around you is boiling and reactive, you just stand firm. By refusing to absorb all that frantic energy, you literally force the waters to eventually calm down around you.
But, you can't weather storms forever without proper recovery. And that brings us to the stoic bear. The bear teaches us the immense and honestly often overlooked power of rest. Picture a bear meditating in a quiet, snowy cave. Cultivating that calm, strong energy is absolutely essential for mental recovery. You don't always have to be moving, reacting, or constantly producing to be strong. Therapists today actually channel this exact bear-like stillness using what's called the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. It's a sensory countdown. You actively notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, all the way down to 1 thing you can taste. By forcing your brain to process immediate physical inputs, you basically short-circuit that anxious mental spiral and anchor yourself firmly in the present moment. It's a total game changer.
All right, once your body is grounded, you've got to manage your mind. Enter the clever stoic fox. This avatar is all about logical thinking and wrangling your internal dialogue. The fox is sharp, it's highly observant of its environment, and it never ever lets sudden panic override its cold, calculated logic.
The fox innately understands this core stoic concept, the dichotomy of control, basically knowing exactly what it can control and what it absolutely can't. Aurelius wrote about delivering yourself to Clotho,
She was the mythical fate who spun the thread of human life. What he's saying here is, you have to accept the unchangeable facts of your situation without letting them destroy your peace. Just focus your energy strictly on your own clever, strategic next steps.
So, with your logic engaged and your emotions regulated, it's time to actually do the work. And that's where the Stoic ant comes in. The ant grounds us in quiet, relentless discipline. Think about it. It carries this enormous load across a vast, burning desert path without once complaining about the heat. It simply executes the task at hand.
In modern clinical terms, that ant-like discipline is a massive, proven buffer against depression and overwhelm. We're talking about things like establishing a strict morning routine, organizing your anxieties onto paper just to get them out of your head, seeking small daily wins, or even learning a hands-on skill like gardening. These small, disciplined daily actions, they compound into massive mental resilience over time.
Now, our final avatar helps us navigate the absolute hardest, most unpredictable obstacle of all, other people. The Stoic owl is the ultimate symbol of observational wisdom and inner clarity. It sees perfectly through the dark, right? Well, we have to learn to see clearly through the heavy fog of our own emotions and the negativity projected by the people around us.
When you're dealing with toxic behavior, the owl's clarity lets you step back instead of lashing out. As Aurelius reminds us, bullying, ingratitude, or indiscretion, it all stems from ignorance. Yet that person still shares a particle of the divine with us. This is a highly effective psychological reframe. Choosing empathy over reactivity literally stops us from absorbing their toxicity into our own nervous system.
Okay, so now that we have our animal avatars, let's go ahead and assemble our daily mental health toolbox. First, we have to start by cutting the dead weight. We absolutely must stop the brutal negative self-talk. We've got to stop the endless social media comparison that just totally dishonors our own unique journey. We need to stop isolating ourselves when things get hard. And finally, we have to draw a hard line and cut out the toxic bonds that are just draining our energy.
But here's the catch. You can't just leave an empty void. You have to actively rewire your brain by replacing those bad habits. You replace self-criticism with genuine, intentional self-kindness. You shift your biological energy through daily gratitude. You start actually asking professionals for help when the load is just too heavy. And you actively practice self-love to truly honor your mind and body.
Now, maybe the most profound tool in this entire framework isn't in action at all. It's a massive shift in perspective. I want to leave you with this insight from Marcus Aurelius because it puts literally everything into focus. Look behind you at the abyss of eternity, and in front of you, another infinity. Let that sink in for a second. In the grand scheme of the cosmos, our anxieties, our embarrassing moments, our daily stressors, they're completely microscopic.
Because our time here is so incredibly brief, sandwiched right there between those two unimaginable infinities, I'm going to leave you with this final question. How will you choose to speak to your inner self today? When the storm hits, will you be the calm lion, the disciplined ant, or the clear-eyed owl? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks for joining this explainer, and keep exploring.